with all the talk that we see from the Biden administration of MAGA people being the most extreme political organization ever, it's been the left that for years has been engaged in political violence, normalizing it. And it's not just extreme people. Although it might be the extreme committing this violence, we see mainstream people on the left, such as in the media or in the Democratic Party, ignore this violence, make excuses for this violence, or in the case of our vice president, actually set up a bail fund to promote getting these people bailed out of that were engaged in riots and burning down police precincts and things like that. I've predicted that as cultural institutions start shifting more from the radical left and start shifting more towards the center, that you'll actually see the violence from groups like Antifa and other radical leftists increase. Because violence is sort of a last hope. And so if you have the cultural institutions such as Antifa has in Seattle or Portland right now, you don't need to engage in that much more violence because the institutions have your back. Instead, they have the institutions and are engaging in violence. And that's only going to increase as we go forward. Now, just this week, we've seen prominent left-wing streamers such as Ethan from H3H3 suggest that perhaps they should bomb the NRA. Of course, he tries to walk it back as, oh, just kidding. But he gave the rationale for what he did. And I want to show you another bigger left-wing streamer and the radical ideology that he espouses. Now, this streamer's name is Vaush. He's talked in this stream that we're going to be looking at about how there's a genocide occurring against LGBT people, that people on the left shouldn't, if the right wins elections and goes with this genocide or goes with policies that he considers towards genocide, that it's kill or be killed and we need to fight against them and we shouldn't accept this election or this rule of law. He also talks about how this is likened to the genocide of the Jews in the 30s, and those Jews should have stepped up and killed the Nazis before they were able to subjugate them. Then he later says, oh, but I'm not making any allegory or comparison to today. That's exactly what he did in this stream. But if you have any questions, I want to just show you a little snippet of what he said. This is what Vaush says that he hopes would happen to people that are lawfully open carrying.
It, but like others will say like, no, don't do that. There might be attempts at ousting. Remember during the Black Lives Matter rallies, there were like those Patriot Prayer dumb fucks rolling their, $60,000 trucks through like urban neighborhoods with a bunch of guys with guns in the pickup trucks. When that happens, I want people to be able to take shots at them from apartment windows.
That's who so many people on the left are. Now, granted, Vaush, you might say, well, he's a radical, but he represents a lot of people on the left. He has a lot of followers, and on Twitch, he's one of the bigger political streamers out there. This is the sort of endorsement that these people on the left that shout how violent the right is. They're literally advocating for shooting people that are lawfully open carrying. Let's not forget in this situation that he's talking about, an Antifa member actually did murder a Trump supporter that was there, who, by the way, wasn't even carrying a firearm. So Vaush looks at that incident where there was an actual murder and says, I wish there was more shooting of these people lawfully open carrying. This is who the left is. Now, there are people on the left that are disgusted by this, and that's why you see people like Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, Glenn Greenwald, and others say, whoa, this is becoming too extreme. But the problem is that the majority of the party, the politicians, the media people, are beholden to some of these crazier people. And still, until we start condemning the violence on the left, which is more prolific and more expounded upon by actual streamers that are allowed to get away with this stuff on streams, keep in mind, if a right-winger said this, they would be booted off YouTube, booted off Twitch and places like this. But Vaush here could openly call for shooting people that are lawfully open and carrying, and there'll be no consequence whatsoever, perhaps a slap on the wrist. Vaush would later go on to claim, oh, I'm not suggesting actual violence or law breaking. You heard it in his own words there. I'll put the link to the video below. So we need to start calling out these violent lefties for who they are. They are suggesting that they use violence and things like that. Political violence is not acceptable no matter what your issue is. And I have some issues that I find are very profound and very important. Never once have you heard me on my stream or elsewhere call for this sort of political violence. People like Vaush ought to be ashamed, and people that listen to him ought to understand the radical nature of this and reject any attempts to call for violence and reject these dangerous attempts saying that, oh, Republicans are calling for genocide of gay people. Because once you say, oh, they're genocidal, then you could justify all sorts of heinous actions in order to prevent